Hi everyone, for today's video we're about to talk and discuss about underpinning, and in this topic we're able to identify, analyze and discuss or understand what is underpinning and its method. But before that, the student must be able to understand what is underpinning rather, to identify the types of work for selection of underpinning methods, and lastly, to know the methods of underpinning. So here is our outline with to our presentation. First, we're about to discuss the underpinning or what is underpinning. Next is the selection of underpinning method. Next is the types of work, selection of underpinning method, which are conversion works, protection works, and remedial works, for structural condition which requires underpinning, and also the need for underpinning, and lastly, the method of underpinning, which includes mass concrete underpinning method, or also known as pit method. Next is underpinning by cantilever needle beam method. Next is pier and beam underpinning method, and mini pile underpinning and pile method of underpinning, and lastly, the pretest method of underpinning. So what is underpinning? Underpinning is a method for repair or strengthening a building foundation. Underpinning method, procedure, and their application is strengthening of different type of foundation. There are situations where a failure in foundation or footing happens unexpectedly after the completion of whole structure. Under such emerging situation, a remedial method has to be suggested to regain the structural stability. The method of underpinning help to strengthen the foundation of the existing building or any other infrastructures. This involved installation of permanent or temporary support to an already held foundation so that additional depth and bearing capacity is achieved. So in short, the underpinning method is to repair or strengthening the building foundation, which caused by a failure of foundation or footing. So selection of underpinning method. There are ages that there are ages of structures that categorize based on its age or years. So underpinning method are selected based on age of structures and types of work involved. For ancient structures, age is greater than 150 years. For recent structures, age between 50 to 150 years, and modern structures, age is less than 50 years. So in short, if the building is 50 years below, it considered as modern structures, while it is ages between 50 to 150 years, it is considered as recent structures. And about Asian structures, the age is greater than 150 years. For types of work for selection of underpinning method, which are the conversion works, protection works, and remedial works. For conversion works, the structure has to be converted to another function which requires stronger foundation compared to the existing. From the word itself, conversion, it's converting the function of a structure to another, that which requires greater or stronger foundation compared to the existing or to the new buildings or new structures. So next is the protection works. The following problems of a building has to undergo protection works. From the word itself, protection, it protecting the works of protecting the building. And here are the problems that undergoes with the protection works. The existing foundation is not strong or stable, therefore it needs protection. Thereby excavation would affect the soil that support existing footing, stabilization of foundation, soil and resist gains, natural calamities, and lastly requirement of basement below an already existing structures. These are the problems of a building that undergo protection works. From the word itself, protection, it protecting the building. Moving forward, we have remedial works. For remedial works, mistakes in initial foundation design caused by subsidence of the structures. Work on the present structures, then building a new one. Moving forward, we have structural condition which requires underpinning. There are many reasons that an engineer or suggest underpinning method for stabilization of subsidence, such as the degradation of timber piles used as foundation for normal building would come settlement. This degradation of structure is due to water table fluctuation. Rise and lowering the water table can cause a decrease of bearing capacity of soil making on the structure settle. Lastly, the structures are built over the soil that bearing capacity not suitable for the structure would cause settlement. These three are the reason why we need to undergo or we need to suggest underpinning method for stabilization of a substructure. So what are the needs for underpinning? The decision of underpinning requirements can be made based on the observation. We cannot undergo with underpinning if there is no observation, if there's no go signal from the higher position, which we need to base having the decision on the observation. When an already existing structure starts to show certain change to the settlement of any kind of distress, it is necessary to establish vertical level reading as well as to offset level on a timely basis. This time period depends upon the how severe is the settlement. Now, before the excavation for the new project, professionals have to be closely examined and determine the soil capability to resist the structure that is coming over it. Based on that report, that need to underpinning is decided. Sometimes such test would avoid underpinning to be done after the whole structure is constructed. Moving forward, we are already on the method of underpinning. The following are the different methods used for foundation strengthening. As what I said earlier, there are six methods for underpinning. First, we have mass concrete underpinning method or pit method. Mass concrete underpinning method is the traditional method for underpinning as it has been followed by centuries. The method involves extending the old foundation till it reaches a stream state room. The soil below the existing foundation is excavated and the controlled manner through stages or pins. This is probably the most common forms of underpinning undertaken for residential properties. The method can be used in cohesive or granular soils, but it's widely used in shrinkable clays. It can be used to prevent movement due to subsidence and hail, and is often used to assist the retro basement construction. And here are the sample picture of the mass concrete underpinning method or pit method. So what are the techniques that involve with mass or pit method? The technique involved the construction of a new foundation beneath a failing section of a building by extending the existing footing down to the greater depth where stable soil or suitable bearing capacity exists. This is achieved by excavating individual bases in short lengths, usually not exceeding to 1,200 mm. and the predetermined subsequence or sequence to a design depth and the suitable step room. The depth of the bases may vary depending upon the profile of such room selected. Once each base is excavated to appropriate depth and before concreting, supervisory staff and local authority officers inspect the excavation to check that their correct stateroom has been reached and that ground is free from soft spout, tree roots, and etc. When the concrete has cured sufficiently to reduce initial shrinking and to support the applied load, and the sand and cement and dry pack is rammed into the gap to the transfer of building load to the new foundation. Alternatively, under some circumstances, the concrete may be flooded up to the underside of the existing footing and will be vibrated to ensure that any trapped dirt pockets are removed. So what are advantages and disadvantages of pit method? Here are the advantages. Bases is usually conducted from one side of the wall only, and it's therefore often possible to construct all underpinning from outside without distributing the inside of the building and the possibility of necessitating a building to be vacated. Soil condition can be examined at close quarter tested to strength using the hand penetra- penetrometers and the presence of tree roots of subspout easily identified. Also, the advantages include the method is not technically complex and operative can be relatively easily trained to achieve competence. Next is the excavation can be often to be undertaken using minimal amounts of plant and machinery acts as a barrier which may help prevent damage or damages to other parts of the building. And lastly, it can be designed to act a retaining structure to assist in retrofit basement construction. By increasing the base width, it is possible to reduce imposed stress by spreading the load of the weak soil. That are the advantages. How about the advantages? The advantages of this system include there are large amount of excavated materials to be disposed of. There are large amount of concrete to be impacted to construction the bases. Excavation and bases are difficult to conduct in unstable of waterlogged ground. Base depth in excess of 3 meters are generally uneconomic and create number of health and safety issues. And lastly, mass concrete underpinning generally requires good site access due to the amount of soil to be removed and concrete imported. If access is difficult, then the technique is more difficult and may prove costly. Yan. Moving forward, we have for the next method, underpinning by cantilever needle beam method. This method is an extension of above described pit method and is often named as cantilever pit method. Underpinning, the method is suitable for building has a strong column and that can the pinning of foundation can be done only in the one direction due limitation. This method is faster than the traditional method, with this procedure being adapted to the load carrying capacity of a foundation is increased. Another slight modification of this method also exists in which the existing foundation is supported by a cantilever beam trapped on the tension piles and compression piles which were tested on firm strata underneath. In short, underpinning by cantilever beam method, same as pit method, but often named as cantilever pit method of underpinning. It is suitable for building has a strong column and that has deepening the foundation that done only the direction of limitations. And here are the sample of and here are the picture or the sample of or the figure of underpinning cantilevered needle beam method. So also the underpinning beam method by cantilever beam method has its advantages and disadvantages. One of its advantages is faster than traditional method, one size access only, and lastly high load carrying capability. While his advantages and her advantages, digging found economical when existing foundation is deep. And lastly, constraint in access restricts the use of needle beams. For the third method, we have the pier and beam underpinning method. It is also termed as base and beam method, which was implemented after the Second World War. The method This method progressed because the mass concrete method couldn't work for the huge of depth of foundation. It is found feasible or for most of the ground condition. This method is developed to cover the limitation of mass concreting method. This method is good for relatively deeper foundation and is feasible for all soil condition. In name in this method, reinforced concrete beams are placed supported on the mass concrete underneath the ground or piers. Here are the sample of underpinning method of pier and beam underpinning method. So what is the cause of pier and beam foundation? For its problem, one of its problem is poor draining. Inefficient drainage can leave the foundation more prone to cracking in a ground of mold. Draining can cause unwanted moisture when directed towards the basement, which can be caused by misdirected garden or floor watering. Next problem is soil problem. Moisture retention within the soil can cause sheetrock, cracking, and unevenness in the basement floor, and the seepage into the basement area through the foundation room. And also we have original construction problem. Pressure over time can cause old cedar piers to root through. It rooting occurs, sinking can follow and cause severe degradation to the foundation. For the primary solution to pier and beam foundation problem, we have foundation shoring, reinforcing the foundation with the timber piers. Also, we have the foundation strengthening, supporting the foundation with the concrete columns. So, pier and beam advantages. Also, the pier and beams underpinning method has its own advantages and disadvantages. And one of its advantages is easier to repair of utilities and wiring, ability to add extra insulation simply and less expensive to repair. While its disadvantages, longer construction duration, greater susceptibility to bugs and rodents, expensive flooring, and lastly, likelihood for frozen pipes and drainage problems. So moving forward, we have mini piled underpinning. So this method can be implemented where the loads from the foundation has transferred to strata located to the distance greater than 5 meter. This method is adaptable for soil that has variable nature, access is restricted, and cause environmental pollution problems. Piles are diameter between 150 to 300 mm, and diameter is driven which may be either augured or driven steel case ones. So piling. Piling is used for projects from building large structures to add basement to your home. In a particular, this become a popular choice for underpinning an existing building to counter problems like subsidence or heat. So the two main ways of researching piles are driving where the piles displace the soil of rather than removing it first. So the biggest advantages of piling, which makes it suitable for everything from underpinning to building the bridges, is that the piles can go right through weaker soil, transferring the loads to the more robust soil or bedrock below. So if we have piling, we have mini piling as well. There is a variation on this. Is a variation in this using piles with a narrow diameter. This makes the inexpensive but still able to support the considerable load. For the most common type of mini piling, a hollow steel shaft into either screwed or drilled into the ground. Grout or concrete can be poured to some pile with soil supported throughout by the steel shaft. Alternatively, especially if there's limited headroom, sectional auger mini piles can be used. This involves boring down and adding multiple flight sections as you go. Depending on the soil stability, the section can either be removed or left in the place where pouring the concrete. Oh, moving forward, we have pile method of underpinning. In a pile method of underpinning, this method, piles are driven to adjacent sides of the wall that supports the weak foundation. The needle or pin penetrates to the wall that is turn connected to the piles as shown in the figure. These needle behave like pile caps. Settlement in the soil due to water clogging or clay nature can be treated by this method. Okay. The pile cap, the existing wall. Okay. There are figure that a needle or a pin penetrates through the wall that in turn connected to the piles. Yan. And last method is a pretest method of underpinning. It is also termed as a base of beam method which was implemented after the Second World War. This method progressed because the mass concrete method couldn't work well for a huge depth of foundation. It is feasible for the most of the ground condition. This method is suitable for the building with 5 to 10 stories with a foundation type pad or stream footing. The method will involve the initial compaction as well as the compression of underneath soil after excavation. The soil is subjected to the predetermined loads. All this procedure can be done before underpinning. Rough foundation can also use in this method. The pretest method has less noise and disrupting during construction. In short, the pretest method of underpinning is only suitable for the building with 5 to 10 story, and having the rough foundation can also be used in this kind of method, the pretest method of underpinning. So thank you for listening, and that's all of my report. Again, I am Jasper Guardaquiver, a reporter and a BSCE-3.